Furina has come to Genshin Impact, and with her release, much has changed. And by much, I mean the Hydro Archon of Fontaine has single-handedly buffed 80% of the characters in the game. You get a buff, you get a buff, you get a buff, everyone gets a buff! At C0, with the right team setup, she is able to give a massive 40 to 75% team-wide buff, as well as applying a good amount of Hydro. She has revived many healers in the game and put them into a playable state. Yao Yao, Mika, Charlotte, and Barbara are all eating good when paired with Furina, and even main DPS Noelle. I cleared Abyss with Noelle and she is barely even built. With any of the mentioned healers, alongside the likes of Jean, Baiju, and Kokomi, any character can take advantage of that massive buff. That means many characters became viable overnight. Now, this leads to the topic at hand, Dehya. I've said it many times in other videos. The X.5 characters are cursed. They are released before their time for the inevitable release of the next region's Archon, and Dehya was no exception. Out of all of the 0.5 characters, Eula, Yaimiko, and Dehya, we all know who was the most underwhelming at C0. She feels like a C0 character at C2, which is very surprising. So, Raiden A helped fix Eula, Nahida helped fix Yaimiko, but has Furina fixed Dehya? Furina opens up many doors for Dehya, and now she is able to properly function in her dedicated role. Now, let's first clear up some concepts on Dehya's dedicated role before we continue. I've seen many people say that Dehya was never meant to be an on-field DPS, but that's far from the truth. If we look at any character, the best way to use them is to utilize both their skill and their burst. If you aren't using both, then you're essentially gimped. Exceptions exist like Yoimiya, but even then, their bursts aren't completely useless. There is no point in making a character have a burst that's not meant to be used. So Dehya was meant to be either a DPS or a sub-DPS, and she was meant to be on field for at the bare minimum 6 seconds out of the rotation. All of her constellations point in that direction as well. At C0, Dehya's burst was so underwhelming that many of her teams, you'd want to skip it altogether. On top of her poor skill uptime, which can be fixed with Sacrificial Sword by the way, but I'll talk about that later, she was really just weird in every spot and every other character did her job better. Now, things have changed. Dehya was a bad on-field DPS, a bad Burgeon character, and a bad tank. Well, she wasn't a horrible tank, but she left a lot to be desired. Let's examine how Furina has changed this. Firstly, on-field DPS. The best role for her is Vape, of course, and Furina allows her to vape all of her hits in her burst, as well as her elemental skill. This was a major issue because before, you'd have to use Mona, and even then, you were rarely able to vape the last parts of her burst, because Mona's Hydro application ran out by then. With the introduction of Furina, Dehya can reliably vape every hit. That is massive. After an unhealthy amount of testing, her best team for vape is Dehya, Furina, Mona with prototype Amber and preferably some healing bonus, and Bennett, preferably also with HP healing bonus for his artifacts. This is the most reliable team and will net you impressive damage. Other teams requiring Animal Swirl is very finicky, and while you may be able to get off one rotation perfectly, after that it runs into many issues. It's not practical for normal use. Number 2, Burgeon. The only reliable character to help with Burgeon was Kokomi. Otherwise, you just don't use your burst in Burgeon teams. On top of that, her Hydro application is rather slow, even with these restrictions. She was functional in Burgeon, but Dehya's lackluster Pyro application left a lot to be desired. Now, Furina has constant Hydro with absolutely no downtime. I am loving Burgeon Dehya now, and I can use my burst to get a few Burgeons as well as proc other things like Burning and let Furina vape. Normally, you wouldn't want to proc Burning because there wasn't a character to actually take advantage of vaping that burning damage, but Furina vaping is a lot of damage. The Burgeon Dehya team is great, and even at C0, you can build Dehya with full EM and a sacrificial greatsword for 100% uptime on her skill. Honestly, this feels so much better now. For Burgeon teams, you'll want to do Dehya, Nahida, and Furina, and the last slot really varies. You can either run Yao Yao, which is what I do, or you can use Kokomi, Baiju, or Sayu. If you don't have Nahida, I do Dendro Traveler and Kokomi so that you can infuse Dendro MC's Burst with Hydro and then Burgeon. And finally, 3, the taking capabilities. Before, Dehya took damage from her passive and as a result, she got, well, nothing. Unless you were using specific artifact sets or her signature sword, there is no use to the passive to take more damage. But now, Furina will take that difference in health and provide a buff to the team. Her second passive that activates once per rotation heals her 50% over 10 seconds. That's 50 stacks for Furina's burst all by herself, plus whatever HP she's losing in the process. At C0, Dehya feels way better if you pair her with Furina now, no matter what route you take with building her, for on-field damage or the Burgeon route. Her tanking capabilities is still underwhelming, but she does mitigate a lot of damage for your team, and the first 9 seconds of her elemental skill does make you invulnerable to any sort of knockback. Now, Dehya is also a standard character, so you can and will get some constellations on her if you're lucky, or unlucky, I guess, depending on how you view it. Boy, I would love it if the game gave me a goddamn Dehya. I still haven't even grabbed Tiganardi after over a year. That aside, I myself pulled a C3 Dehya during her first banner. I must say, when Dehya is at C2 or higher, and you happen to also get C2 Furina, things get crazy. Albeit, this is 2 C2 characters, but man, she can really dish out some impressive numbers. Even without Dehya being at C2, the buff Furina gives is massive with some constellations. So yes, at the end of the day, Furina has indeed saved Dehya. This is about as best we will get, and I am finally happy to play my Dehya and not coping with her performance. In the future, it's possible that we get a certain Adepti bird, who is Animo, can carry the VV set, and heal with constant elemental application. I mean, a man can dream, right? That way, we can use them instead of Mona. I don't know if that will contribute to more damage or not, but it would be great if we got crowd control instead. I guess we will see during Lantern Rite. Rejoice, Dehya mains! We fought hard and we finally have an answer. I can't say that we've won, but it seems like this was a ceasefire. Hoyo will never get my trust back for how dirty they did Dehya on release, but I can at least finally enjoy the game with the Flame main, Dehya of Sumeru. Still here? Great. Only about 1% of you all are subscribed. Since you've made it to the end of the video, then you have to have enjoyed it, right? I believe that subscribing and leaving a like will help the both of us. It's really a win-win either way. Until next time, Enigma out.